Hi, this is Elena with the SDM Foundation, and today we're talking about parental controls. So, what do we mean when we say parental controls? It's the ability to distinguish a device or account as one being the quote unquote parent and one being the quote unquote child. So, the parent account holds some administrative power over the child account or device. And what this admin privilege comes with is the ability to limit functions and features on the account or device and or to track device usage in a number of ways. An important distinction is what do we mean when we say child? Legally in the US, and it's different in other countries, this is kind of a screenshot of how Apple talks about settings for kids under 13, but it goes into different ages in other countries. So legally in the US, under the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPA, which you can look up online to see more details there, but that is distinguishing 13 and under, or under 13, as children, and in this technological sense. And anyone under 13 is legally required to have an adult help them create an account to represent themselves online. The flip side of this is once they turn 13, these kids are allowed to legally undo any parental controls that might be set up. So that can sound kind of scary, right? That once they turn 13, it's like just the open internet on their phones. But we're going to go over some of the updates that Apple has made recently to distinguishing like a child account that is from 13 to 17, which is a pretty good step. And also other ways to lock down phones and devices after 13. But keeping that in mind, after 13, legally, companies are not obligated to distinguish what account is a child account. And these companies are here trying to get our attention, get our eyeballs. So after 13, they're probably going to be making making devices and apps as appealing as possible and addictive as possible. So I'm going to take a step back for a second and just emphasize that while we are covering a lot of tools with parental controls in mind, that does not mean that every tool is a good fit for every household and every family. So we're going to step out of the technology wheelhouse for a second and just talk about how we want to frame thinking about choosing a right tool for your family. First of all, not even sure this has to be said, but kids are smarter than us. So no matter what tools you and your household might put in place, kids can lie, kids can find workarounds, they can create separate accounts or get a hold of separate devices. And like we covered earlier, especially once they turn 13, they can legally opt out of any parental control measure. So no tool is going to be a silver bullet per se, because we know that kids are really good at finding workarounds for these things. So given that kids are very adept at finding workarounds to some of these tools, it's very much recommended that before any tool is implemented, it starts with a family conversation as early as possible about the types of things of like, what does your family or household agree upon that constitutes good amounts of screen time, bad amounts of screen time, good types of things to talk about, ways to keep safe online. Just start the conversation early and notice what your kids are seeing and address, questions that they have. Can adults model good screen time behavior for the family? Can rules be set and applied for the household, like making the dinner table a no phone zone, or everybody leaves their phone in the kitchen to charge in a central spot overnight, just kind of starting to start a conversation and build habits instead of going straight into a tool that will feel like restricting freedom from the kids. And of course, every kid is different. So some kids will need more use of tools and monitoring and app time limiting than others, and that's okay. Um, some kids do a lot of screen time, but they are maintaining healthy social relationships with their friends by doing this. So does that mean the screen time is bad? Right? That's for the household to determine. So for each kid, are they maintaining good, healthy friendships and a social circle? Or is their screen time up and they're withdrawing? Are they tired? Are their grades slipping? Are they keeping up with obligations? Are they starting to bring up concerning topics of conversation, right? These are signs for each individual kid and for each individual household to keep watch of, to know if, a more restrictive tool or a more heavily monitored tool is called for, or if it just looks weird, but they're a healthy, happy kid that uses a phone a lot. It's for each family to decide together. Okay, let's finally get into some of the tools that we can use, especially on phones nowadays, for parental controls. Let's get started with iPhone. So let's cover some of the built-in controls that come with an iPhone. Um, Anybody with multiple accounts and multiple devices can set up family sharing for free, where one Apple account is the adult one, and then you set up child accounts, and you put your children's age, and then appropriate controls will kick in at different times. This is a few screenshots of what it's like to set up parental controls, and also to get into what's called Apple Screen Time, which is sort of where it tracks your usage of an iPhone and different apps and can give you reports or schedule different things like time limits or certain modes like focus mode or downtime for sleep, that type of thing. You can also put a 4-digit passcode on parental control. So if anything could be overridden, it takes the code that hopefully only the admin knows. And then there'll be another slide about this, but one of the built in options is sensitive video and photo protection. So um, it helps protect kids from sharing and viewing sensitive photos and videos, with some resources and pop ups to say, hey, it looks like you're about to view some explicit content, maybe go get an adult, that kind of thing. Let's look at some of the other options for screen time. So here's a few of the options that are within the screen time and parental controls built into iPhone. So app and website limits. So if you want to limit the YouTube app to 1 hour a day, say, set time away from screens. You can set, let's say, like bedtime at 10 p.m. that ends at 7 a.m. So if someone needs to use that phone for something in between those hours, they would need to put in that admin passkey in order to get access to the phone during those times. Screen distance warning. So if you enable this, that if the phone or iPad detects that it's too close to your face, it will give you a notice like, hey, that's maybe not the best for your eyes. Please put it a little bit further from your face. And then also different levels of content to be suggested in different apps. So for the App Store, different levels for Apple Movies, Apple TV shows, and the Books app, to, if kids open those apps, to not show them or advertise things that are above their age range for content. Now, as of June 2025, when Apple had its most recent conference and set of updates, Apple released a new set of updates for restrictions on 13 to 17-year-olds kind of across their platform. So iPhone, iPad, Mac. So this includes basically before, where we had said previously, any 13-year-old could opt out of parental controls. This actually includes a category of restrictions and monitoring that apply to 13 to 17-year-olds that they cannot opt out of, which is a great step forward, I think, because it's not legally required, but it is the type of thing, 13 to 17-year-olds is a age range that everybody is concerned about for phone and technology users. So really excited to see a company stepping in this direction. In addition, the App Store will contain more fine-grained categorizations for apps. So I think there's a few right now, maybe like 4 plus, 13 plus, 18 plus. So now specifically for like that teenage range, it'll include a 13 plus, a 16 plus, and an 18 plus. So app developers can more finely, categorize their apps as appropriate for certain age levels. All right, we've just covered iPhone, so now let's move on to Android. So much like iPhones, there are some built-in controls that come with Android software. And as a reminder, Android software is made by Google. So there are some basic parental controls that you can turn on a per phone basis in the Google Play Store of each Android phone. I think you can set up a passcode, like a 4-digit passcode, to prevent the user of the phone from downloading any app without knowing the code. And that is the basic level. But there are a suite of features that sort of parallel what you can find on iPhone. If you create a Google Family Link account, which turns all your Google accounts into like a family account. And once you have that type of account, then you get access to Android digital well-being features. Just as a note, though, with Google Family Link and Android digital well-being, this does not apply to iPhones, iPads, and other computers besides Chromebooks. So you can't supervise a suite of products like you could with an Apple account across Apple devices. But still, if the phone is the primary focus, then let's get into what Android digital well-being looks like. This is actually going to look very similar to what we saw on iPhone, so I won't get into the nitty-gritty of every feature, but you can see that under digital well-being, you can set up very similar controls like screen time limits, which can be on the device basis or on the per app basis, allow or block certain apps from existing on the phone, find your child's location, monitor multiple family members, and on the screenshot on the right side, you can see some of the other ones like bedtime mode or focus mode as under ways to disconnect, screen time reminders, reduce interruptions by managing notifications, setting up do not disturb mode, stuff like that. So again, very similar to what was in Apple's screen time, but this is just on the Android digital well-being side of things. So let's help illustrate some of this by highlighting a few examples of what you can do on both iPhones and Android phones out of the box with what functionality is built in. So the first I like to point out is setting up different modes, right? For certain times of the day, the most obvious is usually called downtime or bedtime. That what does the phone's functionality look like overnight? What does it allow you to do? Who does it allow you to contact, or who does it allow to contact you? Like, is your phone going to ring if anybody calls, or is your phone only going to ring if immediate family calls? Another one I like to point out is the ability to do a grayscale display. So a lot of apps are designed with very specific colors in mind to be stimulating and exciting and make you want to, engage with them more. So part of setting up a downtime mode can include on both iPhone and Android, putting the phone in grayscale display. So everything on the screen gets like a little bit less exciting to view when you're getting close to bedtime. Setting up favorite contacts and allowed contacts for like those overnights, or maybe you're only allowed to contact certain people while you're at school, or maybe you want to block off most of your contacts while you're at work. Obviously, that doesn't apply for kids per se, but it can work for the whole family to take advantage of some of these. And another example is a weekly report. So I do like to use this for myself on my phone that, if I see last week I averaged 4 hours a day on my phone, and then this week I averaged 6 or 7 hours a day on my phone. Whoa, what's going on with me? What happened this week? So utilizing weekly reports and data to start a conversation with yourself or your family, just to check in on how your device usage is going. So now that we've talked about what's built into Apple products and what's built into Android products, briefly, let's cover a little bit of all of the different third-party alternatives there are out there that aim to offer even above and beyond the service of parental controls, or some alternatives that might work for your family. So first, here is an app called Screenable. It's actually a pair of apps. There's an app that goes on the parent or administrative device, and then an app that goes on the child device. And this is only for iPhone. And we at SDM had the chance to talk with some of the creators at Screenable. So it was cool to hear their perspective on everything. So I forget the exact number, but most kids who are getting their first phone nowadays, it's going to be an iPhone in the US. So they decided to target their product just for iPhone. And it's built off of the same screen time software that you see. So it looks a bit similar, but then they go above and beyond for certain features. So where screen time has its set of features, Screenable allows you to remove the camera app from a phone, remove web browsers from the phone, remove the App Store, like block the App Store and in-app purchases entirely. And so it basically turning a phone, you can turn a smartphone into a dumb phone at the most basic level. This is Screenable's recommended age ranges for the types of functions and features that they offer. In the future, they hope to have all 4 of these modes. Right now, they have the 2 middle ones, so you can get the Screenable apps and create a dumb phone for free, which is an iPhone that just makes phone calls or messages and location shares. And then for a monthly cost, you can upgrade to Screen Trainer, which encourages phone users to practice healthy screen time habits. And instead of focusing a lot on monitoring and blocking, it sort of works on gentle reminders for the kid to say, hey, like, we put a 1 hour limit on YouTube. Would you like to turn it off, or would you like to continue? And allowing them to continue, but then, sort of notifying the parents if any of the limits that were set get overridden. And this could lead to a conversation that sounds like, hey, you seemed kind of tired this week, and I noticed you overrode your screen time for YouTube 5 times this week. Can we talk about, maybe, is that the reason you've been tired? Like starting using the data to start a conversation, but still empowering kids and teens to make their own choices while on the phone. So that's more of Screenable's philosophy around that. So while Screenable is one of many app alternatives for parental controls for iPhone out there, there are actually a number of companies that offer their own devices, not just apps. And usually, if a company is going to offer a whole device, it's going to be an Android, probably for cost. So 4 of the, I guess, better known as of this moment companies for this are Bark Phone, Gab Phone, Pinwheel, and Trumi. And so you can purchase an Android phone with a phone plan from these companies. And the phone itself, like the built in software, is designed with kids in mind. Um, so it's cool that there are so many of these companies. And some of them, we'll get into Bark in a second, offer alternative devices as well, like watches. So Bark specifically, they've been around for a while, and their set of offerings have expanded from what I've seen in the last couple of years. So there is a way to get a Bark app onto an iPhone now. You have to plug the iPhone into a computer that has the desktop Bark app, but then you can take advantage of some of their monitoring features. There's also a Bark Watch, which is just call, text, and GPS built into a semi smartwatch for kids. There's also Bark Home, which you can plug into your router, which monitors like internet traffic happening across the whole house. But part of Bark's offering and its niche is the content monitoring, which I mentioned way at the top, is kind of the hardest part, right? You could limit the amount of time that someone is spending on social media or the amount of time that they're spending texting, but how do you know if the topics of conversation are getting a little dark or concerning? So that's one of the areas Bark focuses on the most, that it's part of its built-in software for its phones and devices is alerting the parent or admin when topics of conversation turn to specific subjects or types. And you can dial that in too, that it's like, maybe I care a lot if my kid is talking about drugs, but I don't care so much if they're swearing. That's literally an example on their site, that you can kind of tweak those settings. It does use AI to monitor the content of messages and posts across a bevy of apps, social media, messages, all sorts of things. So it is a very, invasive product, and some might call it like a low trust product, right? That it's not trusting kids to come tell an adult when something is concerning. It's relying on Bark to alert when something is concerning. So like we, keep saying that it depends on the needs of the household, that some kids may need more monitoring than others, and some kids, you want to build a sense of trust more than you want to monitor. So it's entirely a family household decision on what's the right level. But for things where, you're really getting concerned about, what are they talking to their friends about? Who are they talking to? What apps are they using? And getting notified. Bark is one of the leaders in this space. Now we're going to cover some other ways that you might disincentivize yourself or your loved ones from using technology in certain ways. So there are certain apps that are not designed to totally block you from doing things, but more to get you to pause before mindlessly hopping from one app to another. This app is called OneSec. I've happened to use it before, but there are many like it. So I have OneSec set up such that if I go to open Instagram, it makes me sit on a screen that says, take a deep breath for about 5 seconds. And then it has a screen that says how many times you've attempted to open Instagram in the last day, in the last 24 hours. And then it says, would you still like to open Instagram? So it forces me to pause and think about, why am I opening Instagram? Do I really need to go on there right now? And I can say I don't want to, or I can say yes, I do want to, and continue. So it's an app that encourages the muscle of pausing before mindlessly doing something on your phone. There are also physical devices that can help with phone usage specifically. There's one called Brick, and you can program certain behaviors using an app. But once you tap your phone to the Brick device, some behavior kicks in. And it could be, I think it's more designed for adults trying to go about their workday or students trying to focus on homework. So you can set up your phone such that when you tap the Brick, maybe everything is turned off except for calls and text messages, or just social media apps are turned off, or whatever you want it to be. Like, it could be total notification silences, total nothing works on the phone until you're done doing what you need to do. And that only will turn off again when you tap the phone back on the Brick. So again, it's about exercising that delay in behavior, such that if you want to turn this off and go back to Instagram, you have to physically get up, go find the Brick device and tap it again, which might make you pause before doing that, right? And here's a little screenshot of, on the right where it says unbricked. If a time limit is reached, it says you've reached your time limit, and would you okay or ignore a limit. Where on Brick, it says you have turned Instagram off. There is no ignore limit button. So some people like this, as an adult for getting their work done. But it could be used for family settings too, of it's time to brick your phone before going off to somewhere else. Also, in the physical device category are timed lock boxes. So some of these can hold a single phone. Some of these, like the picture shows, can hold a bunch of things, maybe a stack of phones. And I've heard of families using these as a place to keep all the family's phones overnight. So a certain time of night rolls around, everybody puts their phone in. They have holes on the sides so you can get a charging cable through, right? So you don't worry about the phones dying overnight. They can still charge, but everybody puts the phone away, and that is a signal for it's bedtime. And then that, for some families, that is a norm that works for them. So just to wrap this up, parental controls are definitely tools that can be very effective in keeping kids a little bit safer, or keeping families more aware of what younger members of the household are doing on phones. But it's most effective when it's a family conversation started early, as opposed to a tool that is dropped upon somebody as a punishment. Tools range from limiting time on certain apps or sites to monitoring and reporting the actual content of the apps and sites that someone is using. Every kid and every family is different, and some children will need more guidance than others, and that is perfectly okay. So once you and your family are interested in trying a method of, parental controls, and you're not sure where to start, SDM is here to help you implement. So we can definitely talk about pros and cons for some of these, but once you want to try something, and you may want to try a bunch of things, right? Especially as kids get older and needs evolve, right? But for implementing and exploring some of these tools, we are here. We are happy to help. So give us a call, give us an email, set up an appointment. We'd be very happy to help.